I have heard the words, "You have cancer," twice in the last 2 years. In 2015, it was for thyroid cancer, and May 25th, 2020, it was for breast cancer. As I drove in for the appointment, I had told myself that I was ready to hear that the tumor was cancer. But when I heard it, I wasn't prepared at all to hear that. Instantly, decisions were made for me. I had choices, but I had very little time to decide. So I had to make decisions that I didn't think I'd ever have to make before, regarding chemotherapy but I made those decisions. It was quite a blur for the first little bit. I had to make decisions on having chemotherapy first and then surgery. I had to make decisions on donating my hair before I lost it. I had to make decisions on the mindset I would take. And I continued daily physical activity. That was very important to me. I read books, although it took me a while to read the pamphlets I was given that made it real. I know how easy it would have been to let it all consume me, but I chose to accept the good and the bad and take one day at a time. And I chose to have a positive outlook on it, which also helped to allow my body to rest and repair by being in a fight mode. It was in a healing mode, and I called chemotherapy days healing days because every day I was there, I was healing. And I needed to go forward and not stop living. You don't stop living when you hear the words cancer. And I embraced that any minute I had survived treatments, I was a survivor. And I chose to believe that throughout all of it. I chose to focus on mindfulness and how I can control what my thoughts are. And I was gracious for the help that I had received from everybody. As a person who has finished up with cancer, I've had to figure out what my purpose is now. What am I still here for? Why did I have this? What is the reason? Is there a reason? And I might never know that, but I do feel that helping others get through it is part of my purpose. One of the things I learned about was mindfulness. And mindfulness is a practice that can help with focusing and dealing with everyday situations positively. And it's just the outlook you take when you're faced with adversity. One way to describe mindfulness is paying attention intentionally, deciding to be aware of the present, and meeting yourself with kindness and compassion and no judgment. There's many ways to that mindfulness helps in dealing with conflict. It decreases fatigue, decreases stress, it decreases inflammation, improves moods, and it has a way of allowing your body to heal by noticing it. And one of my favorite ways of mindfulness was some breathing techniques, and recognizing and accepting what your body's going through when it is in such a shock. And there's many ways to breathe through pain. It's actually one of my coping mechanisms that I've used for quite a while. However, when there's times when I had lost my breath, I couldn't catch my breath, and I felt so stuck. I lost my coping mechanism. And so practicing that breath, just so that it's more natural instead of forced, it'll help. And then when you've done all those things, then you can say, thank you, body, for taking care of me. I know for my body, it was beat down, and it stayed there for me. It took care of me, and it healed. And so mindfulness, it's one of the ways to get through some hard things. I had received a few comments on my last video about some breathing techniques that I had mentioned briefly. So thank you for that. We know that our body breathes for us, but do we always know why it's breathing, or what part of our breath is helping us? So actually just yesterday, I really needed to breathe through some pain. We were in a vehicle and hit a bump, but the seatbelt pulled me back and put pressure on my chest bone, and I was in a lot of pain. I did not have a breath, and so I had to take my mind into deep breathing instead of quick breaths. If we don't have that practice, then our body goes into fight or flight, which is more of an in-breath instead of an out-breath. So the very quick in-breaths, which is the sympathetic nervous system. And so our in-breath is excitatory. It increases energy. And the out-breath is parasympathetic, which is for relaxation. And so we need that when we need to get through those situations. And most of our breathing is involuntary. That is what our body does on its own, but we can make it voluntary by focusing on our breath. So few ways that you can use breathing as a technique is by counting down slowly from 10. So breathe in and then 10, 9, 8, 7, and so on. Another technique is called square breath. So holding in till 4, and then, breathing in till 4, and then holding for 4, breathing out for 4, and holding for 4, and keep continuing to do that. And then another way is triangle breathing. So breathing in for 4, out for 4, and then holding for 4, and repeating that. Breathing techniques are really good for problem solving, stillness, sleep, and physical pain. And so all these things, all these ways to breathe have really helped me in different situations that either I need to take a minute before I speak, or just getting through some pain. And so those are the breathing techniques that I had quickly mentioned, and I hope that they're helpful for you as well. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about my cancer journey. Even if you know what's coming, you're never prepared for really how it feels and what to expect. And you could be told all these things, but sometimes you just need to go through it. I had a year of treatments, 6 healing days, which were my chemotherapy days, and 25 ray days, which were my radiation days. I had 40 not so great days and about 65 pretty good days through healing days. And so most of it was okay. It wasn't really that bad looking back at it. I had to take a lot of meds to contradict some of the chemo symptoms, but overall those days were there was more better days than not so great days. I could hardly wait to finish the 6th chemo treatment, and I didn't want to be there, but I got through it. I have some trauma with ice after having to suck on ice during treatments. Still now, if I see ice or taste ice, I get a mental taste in my mouth. I couldn't taste food for a while, but I still ate, even though it was less than desirable. But one of the things I learned was meeting today's problems with today's strength. You don't have the strength for tomorrow yet, so do the things that you can with the strength that you've been given for the day. Celebrate all the milestones, even if no one else does. I celebrated the last day of chemo. I celebrated halfway through chemo. I celebrated my surgery. I celebrated the end of radiation. I celebrated the year from starting all those things. And so really just celebrate all of it. It helps pass it. It helps move forward. I journaled. I used a blog, so I wrote down all my things, and I accepted help from others. So you don't know what's coming, and you might not be prepared for how it feels, but know that there are ways to get through it, and ask for help.